Welcome everyone to the Swakan series. Today we're having Chakravarthy Nalamotu Garu on central planning and liberty. And so Chakravarthy Garu has been a long-term supporter of our work in Hyderabad, and he always been a speaker and mentor for our organization since we're founding. And when it comes to his profile, he's actually a founder and director of the Center for Individual Liberty, and he actually worked as a management consultant for Fortune 500 companies when he's actually living in US. And he actually moved back to India a few years back to pursue his two passions, which is actually two of them is very interesting and very important too. One is a farming, and the other one is actually advancing free markets. And with this goal, he actually come back and he actually started farming in Telangana, and he started a Center for Individual Liberty and actually started building a community of people who actually believe in ideas of free markets, people who actually believe big government is actually not a solution, and also people who is actually trying to end the government control over people, and he's actually strong believer of the bottom-up solutions from people, communities, and societies, then the top-down approaches by the central government. And without any delay, and I would like to welcome Chakravarthy Garu to present this session on liberty and central planning.
Thank you very much, Venkat. So I will start the session to the viewers with one question, and if they can answer it, most of this lecture is redundant. So let me, start off with this question. For those who live in India or understand Indian conditions, what is the most difficult test to be taken in India? As many of you know, India is a country of entrance examinations, so there are several examinations, and our test cycles started very early in our lives. The most difficult exam conducted in India to get through, some of you might be thinking IIT, but it is not IIT. It is All India Services, the Union Public Service Commission, and it's also called All India Services, maybe followed by IIT, probably is the second most difficult test. The reason I'm bringing that up is this. Some of the brightest minds in India join this service. They enjoy a lot of power, privilege, and position, standing in the society. Many of them join thinking that they will serve the society, but that's a different story. Whether they do or not is debatable. The reason I'm talking about All India Services, again, a lot of them, go to IIT, and after graduating from IIT, then they go join All India Services. They are the smartest people, I would say, possibly in India. The smartest group of people, the collective intelligence of these people is very high. Now, how is that relevant to our lecture today? It is relevant in the sense, can anybody who live in India answer why these smartest, brightest people cannot build a company like Google, a Wipro, a Tata, an Infosys, a Reddy Labs, or even hospitals like Apollo? Why is that? Even government-run organizations, Air India, they're incapable of running. Indian Railways is perpetually in losses. Telecom companies like BSNL, MTNL, they are unable to run. I mean, staggering losses. I'm talking lakhs of crores. For a third world country like India, we're talking huge numbers in terms of losses. Now, the question is why? And if we can find an answer to this, I mean, you can't say these people don't know how to run business because they're very smart people. Because, as I said, several IIT graduates join All India services. Several IIT graduates go abroad to countries like the United States and become CEOs of Google and Microsoft. Yet these All India services cannot run even some of the easiest businesses where they have a monopoly. They practically have a monopoly. And that brings us to the question of market order versus centralized planning. I'm going to quickly pull up the PowerPoint here. So let me quickly explain, since I do not have a full grasp of the kind of attendees, but I'll quickly go through the market system. Market system is where private individuals strive to produce things that society needs. Society as in people in general. How much milk do people want? How much rice do people want? Do people want iPhones or Samsung phones, or more of laptops versus TVs versus automobiles? Or do you want to travel? Do they want to go on a vacation? So these private individuals or entrepreneurs are constantly trying to figure out what the population in general wants. There is no order. There is nobody telling them what to do. It's a trial and error. They take their money or their family and friends' money or pooled money, investors' money, as they say. It could be bankers' money or private individuals' money. They tell these people what they want to do. If people are convinced, they put their money in it. And they work very hard to give people what they want. And if people like what is being sold and if they buy, these businesses survive and thrive. For instance, somebody is making an air conditioner. There is Samsung making air conditioner, Hitachi making air conditioner, Voltas making air conditioner. Even Amazon now sells air conditioners. Now, people are constantly gauging which one to have. And there are people making air coolers. Then there are people making pedestal fans, ceiling fans, table fans, all kinds of things. Now, when you serve the needs of the people, when they start buying the things that you're producing, you make profit and you survive and you enjoy the benefits of serving the population in general. Let's say you make an inferior quality air conditioner or an air cooler or a fan or a pedestal fan. Like there are several brands in the market. And people don't like it. People don't like what you're selling. Then your investment is lost, you go out of business. It's a highly democratic system in the sense, if you go to a supermarket, there are literally thousands of products stacked on the shelves. And people walking into these supermarkets or hypermarkets or even online bazaars like Amazon with literally hundreds of thousands of products listed. Every time you buy, you vote on the viability of a product. So as people make these complex transactions of buying so many things, when they buy what they need, when they buy what satisfies their requirement, those companies do well. Now, quick examples rather than theory. Some of the phenomenally successful companies in the world today, if you take Amazon, even though Amazon is being demonized in the name of not paying enough wages, not having good working conditions, but the bottom line is millions, literally tens of millions, in fact hundreds of millions of people are buying products from Amazon for the sake of convenience that they like, the ability to shop on Amazon and find the right product, the kind of offerings they have, has made Amazon one of the most successful companies in the world. The reason Amazon is so successful because it is serving the needs of so many people. Apple, on the other hand, iPhone is a luxury product, but still people want it. Millions of people are buying iPhones and their other products. As a result, they are phenomenally successful. Some of the examples I've given when I started this in India, Wipro. Wipro catered to the needs of large corporations in the US that could not afford expensive software services in the US or rest of the world. As a result, they're successful. They've served the needs of the people. That's a market system. If you look at Apollo hospitals in Hyderabad, incredibly a successful enterprise in terms of treating patients. Even though they're charged more, people are still going because of the quality of service. Now, same thing applies to everything. Everything that we buy, even the milk that we buy has, 5 different brands now. When I was young, there was only government supplied milk available in Hyderabad. You go stand in a line at 5 in the morning, and he would give you a liter of milk because that's what you subscribed for. And if you need a half a liter more, you can't get it. And that comes to a centralized, planned economy is what we call. So I'll quickly jump into central planning and why it came into effect. So central planning is a bunch of really smart, intelligent people. People who understand economics, people who understand business, people who know socio-economic conditions of the society. These are pretty smart people. That's what the UPSC, All India Services Exam does. And even state service, public service commissions, Group 1 is what they call. Basically, they hire some very smart people. These people sit in a room and start trying to figure out what population in general wants. And the reason this came about is those like Karl Marx have thought that there is a fatal flaw in capitalism. The fatal flaw in capitalism, as they have perceived, is that all the profit is cornered by the owner of the company, while the employees do not have the bargaining powers. And they didn't like profit seeking, which is a selfish enterprise. And they wanted the fruits of the labor to be equally distributed among the comrades, among the socialists. So that's where central planning came to picture. The intentions are noble, but the consequences were disastrous. So in central planning, where some of these intelligent people sit and try to figure out what people want. How much rice does a country, let's take India, 1.3 billion people. They will have a planning commission that will say, we need XYZ lakhs of tons of paddy, this many lakhs of tons of wheat, this much grain like lentils, red gram, black gram, whatever things that people want, this much meat, so on and so forth, and they implement an agriculture policy. Similarly, they'll start factories. Those who lived in socialist India will know, as I said, even milk was supplied by the government. Your wristwatch was manufactured by the government. The televisions were manufactured by the government. The transport, the buses, the railways, the airlines, all run by the government. Your telecommunications run by the government. Electricity, which was private when it was started, run by the government. And it is run by the people who are really, really smart. And that was the question I was asking. Why is it that Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, and all these fellows, Narayan Murthy, Azim Premji, J.R.D. Tata, and all of these fellows, can run their businesses so successfully while these people cannot? The smart government bureaucrats, why can't they do it? It's not because they're incapable. There are inherent limitations in a centrally planned system. As I have said earlier, there are literally tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of products. The last I checked, I thought it was like 300,000. I may be wrong. A quick Google will tell you what the number of products available on Amazon. A country of 1.3 billion people, and globally, to be able to understand people's requirements is an impossible task. It's practically impossible. How many engineers do we need? How many doctors do we need? How many nurses do we need? How many farmers do we need? We live in a world of limited resources. It's not unlimited resources, there's limited resources. To give you a quick example, when I graduated back in 90s, maybe there were 15 engineering colleges in the entire state. Then the government came in and said, you know what? We're going to open a whole bunch of them. We're going to give free tuition. So you don't have to pay tuition fee if you're below a certain income level. And hundreds of colleges opened up. Tens of thousands of students have graduated. Nobody has a job. To the contrary, in a country of 1.3 billion people, there are not enough doctors. While tens of thousands of ill-qualified, underqualified engineers are roaming on the roads, jobless, doing menial work, lakhs of people are dying because they can't get medical care, while there are a lot of students literally begging for medical seats. They want to study and treat patients. If you go to villages, I live in rural India, as Venkat has introduced, I do agriculture. Not in my village, even in the nearest town, there is no MBBS doctor. Forget about a postgraduate doctor. Just bachelor's degree doctor does not exist. People die for lack of care. And that's what central planning does, because you can never predict. It's an impossible task. Why is it an impossible task? Because human mind is unpredictable. Nobody could have said 20 years ago that people will want to buy iPhone in millions of numbers. Nobody would have predicted 20 years ago that so many of us would be using Google Maps, that somebody should build Google Maps or some other mapping software. Barely 5 years ago, nobody could have predicted that we'll be using Uber, Lyft, Ola this extensively. Why? Human behavior is unpredictable. We cannot model it. So no central planner in the world can figure out what we want. It comes from the complex market order where literally millions of people are trying to figure out what everybody else wants. And it's a game of crapshoot. If you're successful, you're serving, otherwise you lose. And you pay the price for it. Now, I will give you, since I do agriculture, most of my examples revolve around agriculture. So one of the planning disasters, I'll just give you an example of what I'm doing. One of the planning disasters that is going on in the Telangana state today. Even though I grow orange, there is a small few acres area which is not suitable for an orchard where I grow paddy. And paddy is not a very remunerative crop. It doesn't yield good income. It's easy to grow and it doesn't yield good income. We have our lands near to Nagarjuna Sagar Left Canal, where you get canal water from Krishna River. In fact, by that canal, when the project was designed, it was not designed for paddy. It was designed for other crops, water to be used for other crops. But given paddy is so easy to grow, everybody jumped on the paddy bandwagon. Now, in a marketplace, what happens? When we grow too much of something, the prices drop. And that is a signal. It's a very important signal. Those in India know how onion prices fluctuate every year. And red gram earlier also had similar problems. There are certain commodities, the prices fluctuate all the time. And it is driven by demand and supply. Now, paddy being the classic case, when you grow too much, the prices should come down. Now, the governments have brainwashed, and some of these activists keep saying farmers are suffering because they need minimum support price, otherwise they'll go bankrupt. When farmers don't get a good price for their crop, they will go bankrupt. They are committing suicides. But more than anything else, India has a huge labor force in farming, and governments survive on their votes. Come elections, the votes of the farmers matter. So in the name of minimum support price, the government starts procuring paddy. They will buy at a higher price. Now, this is my personal experience from last time. The government was not buying so much in 2015. This large-scale purchasing of farmer produce by the government has started 2-3 years ago. I started looking at alternative crops because paddy was not yielding me enough revenue or income. I looked at oil palm, I looked at maize, I looked at banana. No matter what I do, paddy was still becoming profitable because the government was buying. This year I sold my paddy. I looked for the lowest quality paddy, which gives highest yield, because the government just doesn't care. They just buy at a fixed price. And now I grow 2 seasons of paddy and sell it to the government. I think it is overpriced by 30 or 40%. So just to give you an example as to what happened in Telangana, in 2000, it's a mind-numbing jump. I mean, how dynamic the agriculture sector is, how intelligent the farmer is, how flexible and adaptable to the market conditions the farmer is. This is to the credit of the farmer. But it's a disastrous decision on the part of the government in terms of harming the economy. Now, the moment the government started buying the paddy at an inflated price, in 2018-19, 18.5 lakh acres was irrigated in paddy and 37 lakh tons. 18.5 lakh acres, 37 lakh tons. This year, 1 crore tons, 105 lakh tons in 39 lakh acres. And guess what is they're anticipating next year? That is just for the Rabi season, or Vesangi or Yasangi is what they say, which is summer crop. In 2020-21, they're anticipating 2 crore tons, which is 202 lakh tons of production in paddy. A simple government intervention has made this possible. And this overproduction comes from underproduction of other needed things. See, we just can't live off paddy. We need to grow maize. We need to grow red gram. We need to grow green gram. We need to grow fruits. We need to grow all other things. But what do? The government is buying paddy, so I don't want. See, as I said, I have considered maize. I've considered bananas. I've considered oil palm, right? Palm trees from which oil is extracted. After looking at all those, I still decide to grow paddy. It's easy and remunerative. It causes overproduction in some areas, underproduction in other areas, but it comes at a huge economic cost. At huge economic cost because the government is subsidizing effectively. Now, why is subsidizing so bad? The farmers are happy and he thinks he's doing well. Not only this, the farmer gets all kinds of other benefits. Free power. Raitu Bandhu is government gives money for each acre of the land that the farmer has, and they have a whole slew of other welfare programs. But what the farmer does not realize is that the money comes from people. The government does not have money to give. They can take money from people and give it back to people. Now, this kind of central planning, or it's a state level planning in this case, now the government is panicking with this kind of yields, because they are having to spend so much money on buying the produce back. Now, the Chief Minister of Telangana says we'll do regulated farming. Niyantrita Vyavasayam, or regulated farming, means the government is going to tell the farmers what to grow. So the leader of the state thinks he knows better than the farmer. Remember what I've said earlier about the market order versus central planning. Nobody knows how much of what to make. It's only through the profit and loss equation. If you're making money, it is something that the society wants. If you're losing money, it is something that the society does not want. Let's say I produce orange and it costs me 10 lakh rupees, but my revenues are 5 lakh rupees. I've lost 5 lakh rupees in the process, which means either the way I'm growing is bad. Let's assume that's not the case. It's just that people are not willing to buy at the price, which means the production has to come down. In regulated farming, what the Chief Minister says is, I know more than the millions of farmers. Literally millions of farmers. I am smarter than them. I will tell them how much paddy to grow, how much maize to grow, how much cotton to grow. And this same chief minister in 2016, after coming to power, has told farmers not to grow cotton, but to grow red gram. 2016. Do not grow cotton because we are growing too much cotton. Instead, grow for red gram and you'll make more money. And something really interesting happened in 2017. Cotton prices shot through the roof, red gram prices crashed. And then the farmers were all criticizing, saying, the chief minister ruined our crop this year. And the chief minister of Telangana never ventured to get into farmer business again. But this year, again, with the bumper crop and the budget that is being used to buy out paddy, the government is back in the business again. Because next year, 2 crore tons, 202 lakh tons, unimaginable yield, highest in the country, highest in the entire. See, earlier it used to be think that coastal Andhra is the rice bowl of India. Not anymore. It is Telangana that is the rice bowl of India. And I think 75% of the central government's procurement came from one state, Telangana, or even more, or maybe it's even 90%. I don't know. It's very high. So now the government is saying, you know what? You people are not smart. We central planners know what should be grown. So we're going to regulate farming and we're going to tell you how many acres of paddy, how many acres of maize, how many acres of lentils, and how many acres of cotton to be grown. You better listen to us. If you don't listen to us, we'll cut off all your subsidies. We'll not give you your Raitu Bandhu check. This is a disaster in making. And I will, when I go through some of the international cases for central planning problems, I will explain why it is a disaster. So the lecture, the way the talk I have structured is, I'll talk about some of the issues with the state level central planning, then the union or the central government level, and then some international cases is what I'm thinking of doing. So, and similar examples can be given in many situations. Education is another sector in India where government controls education, right? It's again another central planning nightmare. Now, post-liberalization, a lot of private schools have come up, a lot of private universities have come up, but still the government education continues to exist at a very, very inferior level. Just to give you an example, in the state of Andhra Pradesh, the government spends 20,000 crores. Now, I think it's probably went up 30, 40,000% by this time. It was 2017-18. They have 1.5 lakh school teachers, 153,000. Each teacher makes 8,50,000 rupees per annum. This is better than some of the best international schools in Hyderabad. Per year, average I'm talking, there are teachers who make 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs also. But per teacher, on average, they make 8,50,000 rupees per year. And the government is spending anywhere between 40 to 50,000 rupees per student. Yet, in a study done by, I think, University of California, San Diego, if I remember, and Azim Premji Foundation, there's a slide missing here. They have found that private schools, what they have done is they have taken 2,500 students, put them in a private school, gave them the books, the clothes, and everything they need. And these kids have outperformed the government school going kids at 1/3 of the cost. At 1/3 of the cost. So why is central planning inefficient? When you do central planning with a lot of large government bureaucracy, the reason it is inefficient is they live in a world of no competition. Let's say government has come together and said, we're going to establish this take over the entire telecommunications industry. We're going to run the entire telecommunication. All the cell phone networks we will run. In India, Airtel, Reliance Jio, and there's a couple of others, large carriers are there. Vodafone, I think. And the government says, I'm going to take them all over. We'll nationalize them. These guys are robbing people. They're charging them too much. We will take it over. We'll pay employees handsomely. And all the profit will be distributed among employees. Yet they fail time and again. The reason being, there is no competition. In centrally planned systems, where the government is running everything, jobs are secure, and there is no competition. In the absence of competition, where jobs are secure, there is no profit motive. Businesses become highly inefficient. The costs go up, the quality goes down. That is the essential nature of central planning. This is what Soviet Union has found, China has found, Venezuela has found. Some of these we'll get into it quickly in a few minutes. So in general, when we talk about central planning versus open markets, we, from a libertarian perspective, we talk about deregulation, detaxation, means getting rid of the laws that get in the way of the market, operations of the market, reducing taxes to the minimum. When we cannot do this, what we advocate is decentralization. Decentralization where at least the accountability is in the hands of the local people. Since I live in the rural India, I'll give you a couple of quick examples. The recent coronavirus, India has imposed a lockdown. The police started beating people up brutally. I mean, the videos that you see are heart-wrenching, cruel. And the reason police do that is there is no accountability to the local authorities. When central planning is inevitable, at least you should decentralize it to the local governments, is what we advocate. If you cannot have open markets and you want to have a hold on the system such as police or judiciary or revenue or electricity department, at least put them in the local hands so that there is more accountability. Now imagine police is reporting to a local authority, like a sarpanch, like a corporator, like a mandal president. Today, in entire India, no matter which state you go to, the police is a state government organization with no accountability to locals. So you can beat up anybody in any way you want. If you are really unlucky, there might be some disciplinary action, but 99% of the times there is no disciplinary action because there are no consequences. There are no consequences for police excesses. Same thing with revenue department. For those who follow news, a lady MRO was put on fire by a frustrated citizen. And electricity department, at least if these departments are decentralized, they'll be more effective. Okay, when we go to the national government, the union government, or the central government, what we people, those of us who believe in market order, what we advocate is if we cannot deregulate or cut down taxes, at least push the central government responsibilities to the states. Many of you may know, Indian Constitution has 3 lists of duties or responsibilities for central government. What activities can central government perform, what the state government can perform, and there is what they call is the concurrent list. There is something called a concurrent list that both are responsible. And this concurrent list is abused by the central government. And there is a clause in there called economic and social planning. Economic and social planning, which is part of the concurrent list, which allows the central government to intervene in the state government activities. So federalism is where central government is restricted to performing duties that state governments are not capable of. For instance, national defense, like the military, the army, the navy, the air force, and so on and so forth. The external affairs, the embassies in different countries, negotiating trade deals with other countries, foreign exchange management, and things like that. Beyond that, the federal structure is to have maximum freedom for the states. Yet, India is under assault by the central government, and the rights of the states are being constantly eroded. More and more centralization is happening. The more centralization happens, the more harm it does to the economy and the social fabric of the country. And many states do not even realize how they're losing their right to govern their states. A classic example being the GST, which recently came. Earlier, state governments had a right to impose sales tax and other kinds of taxes. With GST, everything has been centralized. Even the state component, central component, everything is taken by them, fixed by them. Now, the harm that comes from it is when the taxes are in the hands of the states, it creates healthy competition between the states to attract businesses. It creates healthy competition between the states. As you know, when a business house comes to invest in India, there are several states. Earlier when Bill Gates came, long back, I'm talking in 90s, several states were vying to meet him, to pitch their state so that he comes and sets up his business. Even today, any business that comes to India, there's Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat. These are some of the important states that go toe to toe in trying to attract these businesses. It creates a healthy economic activity, especially for people like us who believe in low taxation, low regulation. What these governments do is offer incentives to these businesses saying, we'll clear you the way so that you can operate smoothly. Now, when it is centralized, this leverage no longer exists. Similarly, so many organizations are controlled by the central government. I think I need to wrap it up. Railways, again, there is no reason for it to own it. If we can, roadways and buses can have state transport corporations, so can be railways. The recent thing that has happened in recent years is NEET is in the education system, where they have centralized the entire entrance examination across the country. For medical school exams, many states and even parents have enthusiastically approved. But what they do not realize is when you standardize into one form, the innovation is gone. When every state is doing it, it looks chaotic. See, the market system looks very chaotic. It looks very chaotic, but there is an order behind chaos. If you just standardize to one, there is no innovation. There's just group of people centrally sitting together and preparing this exam. See, these exams are designed to find the smartest people who can do medicine. And there could be any number of ways. We cannot have one syllabus, one kind of exam for everything. There should be multiple ways. It should be open enough. But no, the government has taken control of it. And I can go on and on. Before there's another big way, even though we don't live in a centralized planned society, we still live in a pseudo centrally planned society. And Reserve Bank of India is one of the big sectors which controls the means of production. So typically what you list here in centrally planned society or socialist societies is means of production. Means of production is controlled by the government. What does it mean? As I earlier said, the smart group of people sit together and decide what all should be done. Now, there is more sneakier way of that happening today. If you look at Reserve Bank of India, it controls all the banks in India. And it is through lending. When you give loans out, when businesses start operating, they go for a loan to the bank. And RBI controls these banks and says who the bank should lend to. They call it priority sector lending, and they'll tell it should be lent to the agriculture. They should say 18% to the agriculture, 7.5% to the micro enterprises, 10% to the weaker sections. All of these are a drag on the economy. So that's central planning nightmare in India, and it has gotten better in 90s. It has gotten better in 90s. But post PVNR, PV Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh, the pace of reforms has slowed, and of late they have gone on a reverse track. If you look at taxation in India, it is oppressive beyond belief. I mean, some of the numbers, they just are mind-boggling. Many of the poor in India consume alcohol on a daily basis. The tax on alcohol is anywhere from 500 to 600%. Tax on petrol is now guessed to be around 250%. Tax on steel, which is an essential infrastructure activity, is 18%. You won't believe this. Tax on cement is 28%. On top of it, companies pay corporate tax. Individuals pay personal income tax. There is corporate capital gains tax, securities transaction tax. On imports, there are a whole slew of taxes, and the current government has increased even more taxes on imports. When you buy automobiles, there's 30 to 50% taxes. 30% to 50% taxes when you do automobiles. As a result, the economy is crushing under the weight of taxation and regulation in India. And we are paying a very dear price in terms of unemployment, lack of economic growth, so on and so forth. Now, I'll give you a couple of quick examples before I wrap up. I think we just have about 10 minutes left. Maybe that's time for Q&A. Central planning nightmare, great examples for the world. The first and the most prominent one is China. The Great Famine happened between 1959 and 61. Mao has come up with what he called is a great leap forward, and he sat there and centrally planned for the entire China what Chinese should do. He moved all the peasants, which is the farmers, not all, a large number of farmers, literally millions of farmers. He moved them from farming and moved them into steel production, into mines. Then the remaining farmers went into community farming, not private farms. They were all put together. So the motivation is gone. There was no profit motivation. And some of it has gotten so absurd. Mao declared sparrows as the enemy of the Chinese economy. And he deployed 3 million people to kill sparrows because he felt sparrows are eating the grain that people should consume. So he just sat in Beijing and came up with a scheme where he moved millions of farmers into steel, the remaining farmers into community farming, where there is nothing for them invested. If they grow a lot, they don't gain anything. In those 3 years, 40 million plus Chinese died. 40 million. I mean, it's just, see, every time we think of genocide, we only think of Holocaust and the Jews that died. And about 6 million or 6 million plus Jews have died during the Second World War in the genocide. Now compare that with 40 million dead when Mao did this. And the more recent one is Venezuela under Hugo Chavez. He declared everything that is private has to be nationalized. His party was a socialist party. He bought off all the steel companies, some of them owned by American corporations. He bought off the steel companies. Venezuela was the wealthiest country in South America. At one point in its history, it was wealthier than the United States. 479,000 tons of steel in 2007. Today it is 1,000 tons. 479,000 to 1,000 tons. Rice plants were nationalized. Fertilizer companies, motor lubricants, they were seized. Millions of acres of private land were seized and redistributed to reduce poverty, given off to people. In nationalized banks. I mean, some of it sounds like India in the 70s and 80s, and we paid a dear price for it. But looks like, some of these countries have not learned these lessons. So Venezuela has the largest oil reserves and some of the most profitable gold mines. Gold mines have been nationalized. Telecom companies not only nationalized, their payrolls have quadrupled. Salaries went up through the roof for the employees because it's a great time. These profiteering companies are evil, so we'll take it over and we'll double your salary and we'll hire even more people. And telecom companies are nationalized, but the phone stopped working. Electricity companies nationalized, shipping companies nationalized. What is the end result? Economy destroyed. Inflation is at 1,000,000%. I mean, you can't even grasp. And 5 million people have fled the country. 5 million people. I mean, you couldn't find a single good example of central planning that worked in this entire world. If any of you are looking at my presentation, I've given 3 links at the bottom. One of them is not a link, it's a name. So there's BBC, if you can Google, you'll find it. Venezuelan crisis in 300 words is the BBC says. And then there's Harvard University, which talks about some of their economists trying to make sense of Venezuela collapse. Why did Venezuela collapse? In their explanations, what you'll find is there is economic collapse, bad policy, violence, socio-economic issues. Neither Harvard nor BBC will not use that single word, socialism. Somehow, despite the destruction it has brought on to people, many of these leading global organizations do not want to blame socialism. That takes me to Jack Ryan, which is a very popular TV show. I'm going to conclude at this point. Season 2, I think, if anybody watched Jack Ryan, it talks about Venezuela. The story revolves around Venezuela. Jack Ryan is a professor and he starts giving a lecture and asks people, what is the most intriguing or most troublesome area of the world? Somebody says Venezuela. Again, same thing. He says hyperinflation, economic collapse, economic mismanagement, socio-economic problems, not the word socialism. Somehow socialism goes missing. Now, in the last 50 to 70 years, central planning has brought disaster after disaster to the world and destroyed the lives of millions of people. Well-meaning people need to talk about the benefits that a free market brings. And again, there are examples after examples. Singapore was the worst kind of slum on the planet you can imagine. I mean, it's uninhabitably poor. Literally, the entire Singapore was a slum. Today, it is wealthier than the United States. Hong Kong was a slum, worst kind of a slum, one of the wealthiest places on the planet. Taiwan, I'm not talking Western countries, I'm talking Asia. Taiwan, South Korea. The success stories are there for us to see when people adopt limited market capitalism. And somehow, if we don't make that stark distinction, and if people don't speak up what is right, then especially when it affects millions of people, we'll be doing a disservice to the society. With that, I will conclude my talk, and if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chakravarthy garu. It's actually very insightful talk, and I would like to bring some of the questions from myself and also some from audience. And my first question is actually, so we actually went through very hardcore socialism since independence, and many people, maybe our generation was actually a bit lucky. We didn't actually experience, but many people like you and JP Narayan and many other actually experienced it, how much hard it is to get a telephone, how much hard it is to actually get a two-wheeler, how much hard it is to get certain household items like a fridge or a telephone power supply. So you guys, I mean, like India, literally, I mean, like above 30s people experience this change. I mean, like before 1991 and after 1991. How the reforms actually open up the markets, and it actually a little bit. It's not actually huge. We actually did very little reforms, but it actually affected a lot. But most of the people in India right now still love socialism, still love central planning indirectly, and still actually embrace big government has to take care of that. Is this change big? Why is this change? Is my question. First question, and second question is it because of the India has a kind of notion that we actually need to look up to the Western nations or developed nations. And somehow Western nations now is actually going in a very vastly wrong direction. Like Bernie Sanders, you can see in Europe is actually going more socialistic, and many developed countries actually turning towards more central planning, more authoritarianism. Is it because of the Western countries' influence on India, or else is there something that inherently people actually liking socialism or central planning?
Great question, Venkata. So I'll answer it in two parts. The first part is India's liberalization or embracing market reforms was not by design, but it's more of an accident caused by necessity. In early 90s, the socialism has so utterly destroyed India, completely destroyed India. But even then, Indians were not saying it's because of our policies, because our leaders were saying Indians were lazy, Indians are incapable, Indians are selfish, and things like that. They never blamed themselves for the faults. So what happened by the 90s, our economy was so badly destroyed. We had no money even to buy basic things. The foreign exchange is gone. We're not able to raise any loan abroad. So at that point, we were forced to undertake market reforms, but we have never understood the need for market reforms, the merits of market reforms, nor the morality of capitalism and how it helps people. Right? So as a result, we liberalized the economy, we started enjoying the fruits, but the socialism in our DNA is still there. So once we got comfortable, again we are going back on the path. Now the second thing, why is socialist philosophy still popular? It's because it gets the support of the government. Governments love the power, governments love to grow more and have more and more power, because they can help their cronies, and it's in the nature of the government, it's in the nature of the beast. It wants to get more centralized and grow bigger, and they have unlimited resources. If people who want to say less government, I mean, it is very difficult to propagate that message. I'll give you a very simple example. Tomorrow, if people who want free markets and small government go to an election, let's take Telangana. So the CM of Telangana or AP gives free power, 1 rupee kg rice, Raitu Bandhu checks, free tuition waiver, free healthcare, and all of these free, free, and free. We, on the other hand, say it is really bad for the economy. It is going to be a very difficult sell. It requires a much deeper education of the population to see why it is harmful. They need to see that all the freebies they are getting are robbed from them, and a fraction of it is given back. The government takes 10,000 rupees from you and gives 5,000 rupees back with a lot of fanfare. And that education is not easy when government has literally lakhs of crores for its propaganda machine. Right? They own the media, they influence the media, they have large contracts that they can influence the media with. Whereas people like you and I are here on these webinars and trying to influence a few handful of people. And I think those are the two big challenges. One, India has not understood the importance of market reforms. It just adopted market reforms as a necessity, but not out of a moral need. Second, the government has a lot of power to push its propaganda. That's why socialism is still in vogue.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I will take a question from audience. Question from Dennis Jones. And I agree with you, but don't you think government should plan a larger strategy for all fields, including economy, defense, and then use the nudges instead of executing directly?
No, as I said, I've given so many examples. It would be helpful to be more specific. It cannot be planned. A government cannot foresee, not a government, no individual can foresee what a complex, group of individuals want. I mean, our need cannot be predicted. It can only come through millions of market transactions where people are voting every day with their purchases. To think that you can sit back and expect and anticipate what can be done is it's an impossible task. We will be giving too much credit to ourselves. It cannot. It's humanly impossible to predict the human needs.
Okay. Thank you. And a question from myself again, and we have been seeing, I mean, like, even though we gave a lot of examples, we try to actually promote these ideas. A lot of people actually come up with the center planning as socialist ideas that we actually practice in India, US. It's not actually true socialism. We didn't actually try it. See, Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, they are actually true socialism. Is these countries actually truly socialist? Are they actually trying to centrally plan the economy in Scandinavian countries?
No, I mean, see, there is a myth that Scandinavian countries are socialist. Scandinavian countries are very free market. What they do have is high taxation, which is also, a big drag on the economy. But they don't do centrally plan. They don't tell what to produce, when to produce, how much to produce, and things like that. They have some basic institutions such as healthcare and education that are mostly free, if I understand. But the rest of the institutions, if you want to go, start a business in Denmark, they will welcome you with open arms, but they'll tax you to death. Right? On top of it, Scandinavian countries are not on the forefront of innovation. If you look at any of the cutting edge companies that are coming about now, are not coming from Scandinavian countries. So they're not doing as well as they're being portrayed. And at the same time, they're not socialist either. So there's some change, rethink happening in the Scandinavian countries of late, but we'll have to see. Socialism is where means of production are owned by the government, as they have done in Venezuela. If you look at India, your telecom companies, right? The BSNL, the Air India, the Indian Railways, the Electricity Department, so education, healthcare. When government owns means of production, that is what is socialism. What Scandinavian has is a high taxation, government, which is, I'm not supporting it any shape or form, but it is a bit more desirable than having a socialist state like a Venezuela or a Cuba or North Korea.
Thank you so much. And for the participants, I would like to add one point to that. One is Scandinavian countries actually ranked among the top 10 most of the time since last 5 to 10 years, among the top 10 in the economic freedom rankings. And also a couple of Scandinavian countries doesn't even have a minimum wage laws, and many laws actually very favorable to the free market economics. And
I don't know, Venkat. I don't know how they rank their economic freedoms. If they're being taxed at 50, 60 or 70%, where is your economic freedom? If everything you earned is being taken by the government.
They ranked other factors in terms of rule of law, enforcing contracts, and how easy to.
If you work 10 hours a day and somebody's taking 7 hours of your hard work away, and if that's freedom, to me it's not. but see, these surveys are done in different ways. Hong Kong, I think when Heritage does it, Hong Kong usually ranks on the top.
It is. It's still Hong Kong is the number one in both pressure and.
It also depends on who is doing the survey, because this is a highly politicized system, right? Everybody, as I said, even Harvard doesn't even utter the word socialism when it talks about Venezuela. So it depends on who's doing the survey and how they come up with it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And also, I remember the last prime minister of the Denmark, who is actually pro-liberal. He's actually a liberal conservative, liberal centrist political party. He was actually telling one of the electoral meetings in the ALDE party. He's actually mentioning that they are trying to reduce their welfare state and also trying to reduce their taxes.
No, there is some pushback coming from Scandinavian countries because the rate of innovation has slowed down. There are no these big innovating companies, or even if somebody is marginally successful, they'll start leaving the country. Because if they start earning 10 millions, 70-80% is taxed away. So when they're somewhat marginally successful, they flee the country.
Yes. I hope we will see more lower taxes in Scandinavia and also across the world. And I think maybe last question is, so when it comes to central planning, most of the time, Hayek has been one of the strongest critics. He used the approach of the knowledge problem. So knowledge problem is one of the arguments that actually we always actually seen in terms of economical argument. He sees, so it is very, very hard for central government to plan economy because they don't have all nuts and bolts of how people think, how people act, how they actually behave. Market is the best solution that can actually deal with this one. So rising technology and artificial intelligence, do you think this technology might actually solve this knowledge problem? Central planning might actually rise up into the global debates again.
It's a hypothetical question, right? I think basically what you're saying is artificial intelligence becomes so advanced it can predict the people's needs. We don't know. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. As I said, I don't think human behavior can be modeled as such. Like, could you have predicted, most of these companies coming around? Today we are surrounded by Instagram, TikTok, and just 3 years ago, right, when Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter and LinkedIn, I think, were the big things. I thought, this is it. What else can come? Right? Then suddenly came Zoom. The Corona lockdown comes, Zoom shows up. I mean, Zoom was there, but now every household knows what Zoom is. Then I don't know where TikTok came from. I don't know where Instagram came from. So to think that these can be modeled, I mean, when we will cross that bridge when that day comes, I don't think it will come in my lifetime. Uh, but we'll wait and see. I mean, if it does, then nothing beats it. End of the day, we all want something good for the society. But as of now, no human being or no group of human beings can sit in a room and centrally plan and figure out the needs of the society. It is impossible.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful session. And we have been seeing a technology, human entrepreneurial solution that are actually disrupting these top-down approaches. We can see in Airbnb, Uber, we can see Voya rooms, we can see in many other areas, a number of areas where technology is actually breaking down the barrier between consumer and the producer. And also it's same with the markets, and it actually bringing the people together. It's bringing back power back to the people. And we at Swatantrata, our goal is actually advancing the human flourishment, ideas, policies that can actually cause human flourishment and progress. And we believe that liberalism or libertarianism is actually one of the important principles that we require to show these kind of technologies that can actually disrupt our life, improve our lives very drastically. And thank you so much for joining in. And but the one last one, you also actually mentioned about Venezuela and how they become one of the richest country in Latin America to very poor and people actually fleeing from the country. So we actually bringing up a panel next week from Venezuela, Liberty in Latin American panel, where we having speakers from Venezuela, Colombia, and Mexico. You can actually hear the stories how socialism was affected, not only India, but also across the world. Socialism is actually a disease. It's killing the people. You can see through this talk next week coming. People who's actually interested to learn and see how it actually impacting our lives, please join next week. And thank you so much for joining all the participants. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Venkat. Before I conclude, I just want to thank your entire team, you, Ravi, and Saugandhi, and a whole bunch of folks. As I said, it's a thankless job, but the fact that you're able to, bring so many speakers together and trying to spread the message of freedom, it's a noble endeavor. And as I said, what we propagate and try to promote is on the fringes, because none of the large media organizations or TV channels or print media are willing to subscribe to us, because we have nothing to offer, right, other than our message. But the fact that youngsters like you are motivated to take this message forward is quite encouraging. And what you do will have far-reaching consequences. Even if we can motivate a few people and bring small policy changes, it will have dramatic effect on humanity. Thank you very much for everything you all are doing.
Thank you so much, sir, and have a good night. Thank you so much.